Hey everybody, welcome to the second edition of our official Survivor 101 podcast. We've been doing this for a few weeks now on the Facebook group, and we're so excited for everybody who's watching along live. Really excited to bring in a very special guest tonight. As you all know in the group, we have Reem Daly joining us from season 38, Edge of Extinction. She is the perfect guest to have on tonight since we have our Edge of Extinction challenge coming right up. So she's going to be joining us in about 10 minutes time. But right now I'm with Eric Buzaglo, and welcoming back to the podcast, we got Ethan Gordon over here to talk about our 2-hour episode of Survivor. So Eric, how you doing?
Doing well. Another week has gone by. The beard has grown, and we got a 2-hour episode last night. So a lot of content to pack in this episode.
Are you growing out your beard like as if you were on Survivor? Is that what your quarantine's like?
Kind of. Not showering, growing the beard.
Okay, good.
You get the point.
You're all eating rice. Okay, so Ethan, how you doing?
Good. Long week. I always like that Survivor is on Wednesdays. I don't know how you guys feel, but it breaks up the week really well, especially now when the days kind of blend into one. There's before Survivor of the week and the after Survivor of the week. And the after includes talking about Survivor and doing this stuff, which is so awesome. So it's given me meaning in a meaningless time, I guess you could say. Be poetic.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear it. Well, at least we have one more week of Survivor after this that we get to do this for. So we had 2 hours last night. We got 3 hours next week. So we have a ton of Survivor to talk about. All right, let's get into it. So we had we'll start with our headlines. We had 2 amazing tribal councils last night. Really, to me, last night was the rise and fall of Nick a little bit, because Nick had a chance to do something big in his first tribal, and then he pays for it in the second tribal. So I want to talk a little bit about his game. I want to talk about Jeremy's game. So Ethan, let's start with you. Give me your headlines for last night. What were your major thoughts about the episode?
I think my headlines are that some of these winners don't know how to play any other game than thinking that they are the winners and thinking they can play a winning game. And that might sound redundant, but what I mean by that is a guy like Nick, has had to know that he has not been leading the pack during this season. And he's even said, it's my turn. I got to make a power move. I got to do a power play. And the issue there is, I think he thought he was way more in control than he was when he made that original decision, A, to send Jeremy home, and then B, to sound so confident after Michelle won her immunity and say, this is great, Michelle won her immunity, we're allied, time to make some waves, and then immediately voted out. And for us watching at home, I think we were thinking, how does he not have the awareness, just the wherewithal to understand his precarious nature in the game? And I want to get into this a little more about considering why some of these players, all think they can win the game. And I think if Nick had just thought about it a little different, he could have switched his gameplay and actually made a really big move by going with Jeremy and really, shaking it up way more than he did by, really going with the pack and just becoming another number that really Tony and Sarah were able to pick off of, which I think that's going to be the story of the next few episodes, unfortunately, as I think that's the case.
Well, I do think that's the major difference between somebody. I know we spoke about this with Dr. Mike last week, which was the difference between somebody who's played once and never lost, and then somebody who's played multiple games. And you have people like Tony and Sarah who have the experience of making mistakes, and then they know they're coming in now able to correct those mistakes. You have someone like Nick who's never experienced, being on the wrong side of a vote so many times, and the same thing with Michelle. And I guess Michelle has had some adversity, but people like Ben, Denise, Michelle, and Nick all never lost before, whereas Jeremy, Tony, and Sarah have. So it's interesting to see that dichotomy. But Eric, let's go to you a little bit before we bring Reem in. Tell us your headlines for last night.
Yeah, regarding Nick, since we're on the topic, I always tell myself, be nice. But to me, Nick, he effectively eliminated himself from the game last night. I know that he feels like he's well positioned. He said, and I have a quote here: "I'm stuck in the middle of two plans. How do I get myself to day 39 and winning the $2 million prize?" And I'm just like sitting in front of my TV. I'm like, you can't. But no, in all seriousness, is Nick. I saw the last few weeks the way he's been voting, and he's been voting with Tony the last few weeks, thinking that he's aligned with him. And someone who claims he has good perception of the game should also see that Tony's aligned with plenty of people on the island, not just with Nick, with plenty others. Jeremy, Denise, Sarah, Ben. And so if Jeremy gets eliminated, Jeremy got by
Eric,
Tony.
I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second
Yes.
because we do have Reem Daly in the waiting room. So I'm going to bring her in right now. So, ladies and gentlemen, for everybody watching, it is my pleasure to introduce the unfortunate first boot of season 38, but someone that stayed on the edge of extinction. I'll say that one more time. Someone who stayed on the edge of extinction the entire season, was our hero from season 38 and someone who we love to hear from. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to bring Reem Daly into the conversation so we can continue to talk about this. So she will be joining us in just a second. Eric, if you want to just continue with that thought while she's coming on in.
Yeah, so Jeremy got eliminated first, but he was aligned. I see Reem's picture, but I don't know if Reem's on the other side.
She's going to get connected in a second, so keep going.
All right.
Yeah.
So Jeremy got eliminated by Tony.
Oh, wait.
Are you in, Reem?
Yeah, dude. Hold on a second. Why is this guy? I'm like Dumb and Dumber with this shit. I swear to God. Hold on.
I love it.
Hi,
It's okay.
guys.
It's okay.
Sorry, I swear to God, man.
All
This
good.
is fucking so stupid. Oh, yeah. I'll be in Tatooine. Perfect.
Okay. Are you good? You good on your end, Reem?
Yeah, dude. I'm
Oh,
good.
wow. Love it.
Yeah, you got a nice virtual background behind
We
you.
have Reem Skywalker
It's,
on the
hold
call.
on. Listen, it's really pathetic how I do this. All
Oh,
right,
there you go. There you go.
Hey.
Hello.
Figured it out. What's up, man?
Oh, there you
What's
go.
up? How's it going?
Dude, it's hot as nuts in my house. I got freaking lower the AC. Hold on.
Okay.
Alrighty then.
Okay, so Reem, let me
What's up? How about last night, dude?
Oh,
Right?
it was crazy. I can't wait to talk to you about it. I just want to give you a heads up that we are currently live in our Facebook group right now. So we have some people who are watching us who are really excited that you're here.
I didn't get all dolled up, man.
Don't worry. We saw you for, what was it, 35 days on the edge of extinction. I think this is fun.
But I was 20 pounds thinner. But yeah, it's all good. All right, cool.
Okay, so we're really happy to have you, and we have a lot of people who want to ask you some questions. So I guess the first question that we have for you, Reem, is what did you think of the episode last night?
It's freaking awesome, dude. I thought it was great. I loved it. I mean, I really like Jeremy, so I was kind of sad. But, I mean, strategically, yes, if I was Tony, I would want him around. But you can't stir the pot too much, especially if, it had to happen. I get it. I really like him. Michelle, bravo, Michelle. Bravo.
A little pat on the back.
Because
Huge boss,
her
huge
days
boss
were
move.
numbered, man.
Yeah.
I think, what is funny, and it's not fair, but I get it, where they're like the hyenas, the goats, all that stuff. Like, I get it, but it's kind of not fair when they're all winners, whether they won and some people didn't agree with it or some people didn't agree with it. I always feel bad when they start wrecking people like that, because it ain't easy being out there, dude. It's just not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. And by wrecking it, you mean people giving them a hard time on the internet? Or you mean
or
just on
not
the
just on the internet. Like, imagine if you were on Survivor, right?
Yeah.
And maybe you weren't the most aggressive player in the world or whatever, and then you got other people going, they're goats, they're hyenas, they're this or that. Well, I mean, okay, because you see all these other people doing whatever. The fact that they're able to fly under the radar, you got to give them some credit for that, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
Michelle, remember with her in poverty, I always say poverty's name wrong, but but
So
the
do I.
whole Wendell debacle, all that. I mean, she had to scrap her way up. I mean, you got to give her some credit. Laying low doesn't always make you a goat. You know, sometimes it's the smarter way to go.
Absolutely.
Really.
And then you have someone like Michelle who's come in and she was not totally respected. And there was a lot of people who felt like her win was completely controversial. But
I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I would have given it to Aubrey myself. But, you know, here's the thing. If I won $1 million, I don't give a shit what anybody thinks. I just won $1 million. You know what I mean? Like, sorry, dude. I'd be so happy with my $1 million. Say whatever you want. I won. They voted for me. I won. But it's unfortunate that there are a handful of folks that feel like they have to, you know, fight for their title. I think that's take the money and run, dude. You know what I mean?
Well, the interesting part of that is that a lot of people say that when you make it to the end, and this could relate back to your season with Chris, is that it's really about your story when you get there. And I do feel that because of Michelle's first season and her story, which is that she was the winner who wasn't respected, who is coming back now and trying to prove herself. And it's like every time she tries, she just can't get there, but she's that underdog who keeps trying and trying and trying. She does have a little bit of a story, and it's similar to someone's, you know, story who goes on edge, who might have lost the game and then, you know, fights their way to get there. Michelle is a fighter, and it's someone who I feel like the people who are on the edge and the jury could probably relate to if she gets to the end, because she is that underdog.
So let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Let's just say it came down to Michelle, Sarah, and Ben. Who are you going to vote for?
Can I comment on this first?
Yeah, Eric, go ahead.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
So obviously Michelle had a great episode, great edit last night. She had her moments. And when I look back at who's part of the jury and doing jury management at this point, a lot of it comes down to who are you friends with on the side of the jury. And I know that Michelle, she has
That's
Nick.
Not right. No.
No,
See,
but
that makes me mad that you say that.
Drag him.
That makes me mad that you say that.
Come on,
no,
Reem,
but
get him.
she
It's
did
not
play.
about friendship, dude. You got to think about something. Go ahead.
No, but Reem, I do think at this point, everyone who is left in the game has a story. Now, Michelle, we can see more of an underdog story and always playing from the bottom. And I do think that she gets a lot of kudos for making it this far, for playing that card and playing that game. And I do think that she's aligned herself with a lot of members in the jury, if you want to call them friendships or align mates or tribe mates. I do think that she did play a great social game with many players who are on the jury at this time. Jeremy, Nick. She had a good relationship with Kim. And I do think she's well liked in general, and her game's very respected by most people who are there.
Okay.
I don't know, John or Ethan, if you guys want.
Well, I want to hear what Reem's going to say.
Michelle, Sarah, and Ben.
Well, you triggered Reem, so let me hear what she's going to say.
Yeah,
you did. You triggered me. You triggered me because, you know, there was so much chatter on my season about, you guys voted for Chris because he was friends with all y'all. And no disrespect to Chris, but he wasn't friends with all of us. A lot of people, he got on our last freaking nerve, dude. And it had nothing to do with us being friends. Was I like, oh, go Chris? Ooh. Yeah, I was proud of him because the kid did bust his ass, but were we friends? No. I mean, we're friendly, but we fought every single day on the edge. I've never felt so disrespected in my life. Like, honestly, people don't get votes because you're friends with them. And no disrespect to Julie, but did she get any votes?
No.
And her and Ron, weren't they besties?
Right. So, I mean, at the end, it probably comes down to a lot more about respect than it does necessarily about friendship.
It's who do you want representing your season, especially something like Winners at War? Who do you want representing your season who put it all out there? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, how could somebody not have voted for Chris? I'm sorry. Everything what he did in the handful of days, even Hello, Victoria, who is constantly controversial on Twitter, talking smack about whatever, but she didn't vote for Gavin, and Gavin was her boy. You know what I
Right.
mean?
No,
So,
you definitely
and as
bring up
much-
good points. You definitely bring up good points. But I know that you spent quite amount of time on Extinction Island. Chris represented your season, and he got eliminated very early on during the season. I'm just curious.
I'm sorry. I was watching that the other day, and I was like, bah! Because it was shocking that he did. It was shocking that he got kicked off.
Next week, there's going to be the battle back, of course. Whoever makes it back into the game, let's just say, I'm not going to mention any names, but who do you think out of the bunch who would make it back into the game has a shot of winning the $2 million prize?
Well, doesn't it matters what they do when they get in?
Yeah.
It's not just who do you think should get in and win. It's what are you going to do when you get in? And this, if we're going to bring it back to my season, Chris did a lot, dude. Yes, he had some information. So he was allowed to have that information. That's how no one forced Kelly to say, Lauren's got an idol. Or, yo, dude, you need to get her to give you the idol so it looks like she's done something. You know what I'm saying? Are you with me?
Right.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah, we got you there.
Did and a lot of stuff. Like, I don't think anybody could have gone in and been like, yo, Lauren, in order for you to win, like, this is what the jury's thinking. You need to hook me up. I'll give Chris some credit. I wouldn't have fallen for that shit. And Lauren's lovely, but she gave him the idol. I mean, who does that?
So maybe if I can just tweak the question a little bit, who do you think out of the jury members is the most deserving to win out of the cast that are on that island right now?
At the end of the day, and this is what pissed everybody off, you were voted out. You were voted out. Congratulations, you didn't leave. You were scrappy when you were on the edge of extinction. I mean, Chris did some cool shit on the edge of extinction, but he also there were other times where everybody else was busting their ass and he was sitting there making jewelry with Joe. And I'm like, really? So, I mean, it's not all about that. I mean, yes, it matters what you did there, but it also matters what you do in the handful and when you're actually in the game.
Absolutely.
What did you do?
Yeah. So,
how did you turn things around?
Reem, so I want to talk a little bit about the relationships that people make on the edge of extinction. So versus in the game, because it seems that we saw something at the end of the episode last night where we had Tyson and Natalie. All of a sudden, we see that there's this relationship between the two of them where Natalie actually buys an idol for Tyson in case he gets back in the game.
Right? What was that?
Right. So that's my question for you is that it seems to me like once you're on the edge and you lose the layer of duplicity of being in the game, you heard it tribal. Everyone was saying, I went back home after the season. I didn't know who was lying to me. And now it's like you get to be on the edge and it's like almost like, you're still in the game, but you don't have to worry about one of them voting you out tonight. So you don't necessarily have to lie to these people and you might bond and feel closer to them. Is that how you felt when you were on the edge of extinction, building relationships with people versus in the game?
I was so annoyed. Like when I tell you, like, I'm not this bitter, angry person. I'm really not. I got along great with Julia. I was fine with Aubrey. Everyone that wasn't on the Manu tribe, I was actually fine with. I was good with Keith. And everybody kept telling me that he lied to you. He did this, but I didn't care. He annoyed me a million times less than they did. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Devins and I'm fine with these people now, mind you, but on the edge, they were so rude, so disrespectful. They were just like, I have never wanted to just punch somebody in the face so many times in my life. So they seem pretty happy on the edge, to be quite honest with you. But that is not how it was. Like, if you look back on ours when Aubrey first got there, she's like, this place is a train wreck. It was a train wreck. It was terrible. Like, every single day I had to it wasn't as lovely and kumbaya as these old schoolers are having it. So I
Yep.
can't say that. No, I cannot say it was the same relationship at all, because I was being micromanaged at all times on how to open and cut coconut and all that other shit. Like, no, I was just, no, it was terrible. No, it's a whole different dynamic. These folks are just friends. Maybe they're friends, or they just respect one another a lot more than what was going on when I was there. So it's apples to oranges, honestly.
Yeah, so I want to bring in some questions from people in the chat, and I see that Natalie is asking me if you were jealous of some of the activities these winners had to do on the edge, because it seems like...
Is this the Natalie?
No, different.
No,
it's actually Eric's sister. But
this is actually Eric's sister. Who's asking that. This is yeah. So she is asking.
Different Natalie.
Yeah, different
was
Natalie.
Like jealous.
Yeah, I guess
Well,
because
I mean, it's kind of nice to have shit to do, dude. Yeah, a little bit. I was jealous that they had an opportunity to buy food, and that they had a nicer shelter, and that they had a big fat blanket that didn't have holes all over it and was nasty. Like, yeah, I'm jealous, because that platform bed or whatever the hell it was like an episode of MRSA. The whole, all the wood was cracked, and if you bumped into it, it would like stab you. It was not nice. No.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a lot of people asking whenever we say like, oh, okay, we're going to talk to somebody who was on the edge of extinction, and they're like, and I was telling people I was going to talk to you tonight, and they were asking like, what are the conditions really like on the edge of extinction? Because it was originally pitched to the fans as this is going to be this thing that we don't know who's going to survive the edge of extinction. And we're going to go back to old school Survivor, where people are not going to be eating, and maybe some of them are going to quit. And maybe some people are going to try and get other people to quit. So what are the conditions really like out there? Is it as bad as it was originally intended to be? Or is it once more and more people start coming that it gets better?
I'll be honest with you. It looks so pretty on TV. It looks really
the
pretty.
Sunrise, sunset.
It's not that pretty. It's not. Like, you can't just, it's not like you're in Turks and Caicos or something amazing where you just walk out barefoot on the beach. Everything's nice. You got to have your shoes on. It's not that nice to just walk out on the beach. But that's not even it. It is pretty. But there's no, and it's shocking. I'm like, I could have sworn there were no palm trees, because you can't weave palm fronds. There's no palm fronds to weave or anything, right? There's no food. There's no fruit. There's no berries.
How much rice were you guys eating per day?
Oh, not much at all. Like, wow. So if you cut a coconut in half, and it was not even like a half of that, or like a decent shell size.
Wow.
You'd have that if you were lucky. If you rationed properly, because sometimes, maybe that. And then we'd have coconut that we would toss around with salt water, and if you use your imagination enough, it tastes like popcorn.
Okay. Wow.
But there isn't much food to be had, dude, at all. And that's it. Or unless, of course, you go fishing. But you got to think about it. When you go fishing, there are spotters in the water with you, right? Basically scaring away the fish. So it's like, bravo, Chris, for getting as much fish as you did. Because I'm serious. There's like dudes that go in there with you because they're filming it, and you don't see a lot of this. So it's like, if you're not going to show it, why are you with me? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you're just scaring away the fish.
Yeah, it's interesting. And a lot of this stuff ends up going to secret scenes or things like that.
So there's a lot of hermit crabs. So when you get there, just so you know, the sand, the beach, all that shit, it is filled with ants. It really is. There's ants everywhere. Oh, and there's lizards, lots of ants, lots of, I just told you what they were. They have shells and people buy them and make, what the hell's, Jesus Christ, I just said it. What is it called?
The hermit crabs you're talking about?
Thank you so much. Hermit crabs. So hermit crabs basically, and Chris did this and it made me cry. He takes the hermit crabs and he smashes them and
Oh,
takes the meat out and uses it to fish with. I mean, you had to do what you had to do, but it was very sad.
Right.
You seem to mention Chris a lot.
Well, I mean,
Is it a yin yang relationship?
he's not a bad dude, but what I'm telling you, it's not about people voting for their friends, man. And I really think in this particular season, when it's winners at war, they're gonna have to. Whoever wins is representing 20 winners. They're not going to vote for their friend. They're going to vote for someone who played the best game and represented 20 winners. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Well, actually, speaking of that, I have a question from Haley in the chat who said, we've had a few ex-survivors say that they dislike the Edge of Extinction because it allows players to not get blood on their hands, yet come back in the end and win the whole thing like Chris. Do you agree with this opinion? Or do you think living on the edge and winning your way back makes for a more deserving winner?
Dude, no offense, but the edge sucks, right? And you even heard Rob and everybody else say how hard it was.
Yeah.
It's terrible, and it felt great to hear them all say that. And they're getting more stuff than we did.
yeah.
Now, the game is called Survivor, and it's up to Jeff Probst how it goes. Now, for me, like we've been watching it all along, right? Of course, old school Survivor is more hardcore, but it's not our playground. So you go with what you're dealt with. This is what it was like on that season. So people can complain from here to South Africa about it, dude, but it is what it is, okay? So in a perfect world, I couldn't be happier that that's how my season went because I got voted out first. But is that how I like to watch it? No, it isn't. But you say they got blood on your hand. When you get voted out, you're pissed. You're gonna remember what went down. Whether like whoever goes back in, they're gonna be mad, and I don't know. I just, as a viewer, I get it. I don't love it either. You know, I really don't. And as a viewer, I'm watching it and I'm just like, it's not really what's happening. It's exciting to see the tokens and the freaking extortion and all that stuff. That's great to watch. But as a viewer, I prefer no Edge of Extinction.
All right. So
Wow.
I mean, that's really interesting to hear because.
Don't you? Be honest.
Well, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
What I would say is that, you know, if there was ever going to be an Edge of Extinction, it should be with people that we already know. So that's something it was really great to get to know you in season 38 through the Edge of Extinction.
Well,
but
thank you.
yeah, but I'm saying, but a lot of people we don't know that well, and then they're living there, and we don't get to know the people who are in the game, and it's really hard for a 42-minute show to be dangling all these balls in the air, start juggling all these balls in the air. Like that's what I'm trying to say. It's like you can't be, you know, split into at certain points like 3 tribes of 5, and then you have a 4th island with all these people living on it, and trying to show all this stuff in a 42-minute episode.
It's a lot. It's a lot because there is a lot that goes on there. But at the same time, it's more exciting to watch the gameplay that's happening during the game. You know what I mean? On the other islands. Like, I love watching Tony's new spy nest up in the tree. Like, that's hilarious. Like, I love seeing the 800 different conversations that are going on about, you know, who they're voting out and how they keep. That's certainly more interesting. However, it's also, I'll give them a bone this season that they were doing the tokens and doing the extortion and the advantage. I like that. But, and Jeff Probst, if you're watching this, don't hold it against me. I do wish that Winners at War didn't have Extinction. I do.
Yeah. I actually read last night, I was reading because a lot of people before the finale, they put out their final rankings of the season. So how do they feel about this? Is it like a top 10 season, a 15 to 20 season? Like where do they see the season out of the 40 seasons? And I read a lot of people saying this was a, you know, top 3 season that became maybe a top 10 to 15 season because of all the gimmicks that were associated with it. Whether it was the Edge of Extinction or the coins or all this other stuff, you know, when it would have been we were talking about, how this season came to be and the steps we took to get to where we are now. The biggest impact, I would say, like if you go back to, and Ethan, I know you probably want to comment on this because this is one of your favorite players, but when Ethan Zahn got voted out, that was like the first really big shock of the season when everyone was like, oh my God, we love Ethan. And the impact was, it sucked. Like no one wants to lose their favorites, but then, you get them back by seeing them every day. And it's nice. I'm glad that we got more Boston Rob. I'm glad we got more Ethan Parvati, people we may never see again. But, we lose the impact of the most important fundamental aspect of Survivor, which is you're voted out and it's final. And that's what makes the show so intense and so exciting.
So I want to comment. Sorry, Reem, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it's like, and I love that they all get along, but it is a little more interesting if people are getting on each other's nerves. Am I right?
Yes, 100%. I mean, that's where...
And there's way too much kumbaya
throwing a little dash of Reem in there. And,
I mean, there's just way too much kumbaya going on. You know what I'm saying? There just is. And if anything, I feel sorry for Adam. I feel like he's an outsider on that island. Is it just me?
He's not getting a lot of airtime.
Well, I think with Adam, and I think this goes back to the issue of, playing the game for the first time, and winning and then getting back into it versus all these veterans or people who play the game on other levels. Adam, I guess like Nick, got a pretty crappy edit. And I think, Reem, I don't know if you can speak to like watching yourself on TV after spending all this time and thinking about how you're being portrayed on TV. But I think Adam's going to probably rewatching this and being like, look, I'm a all-time like strategic player. I live for Survivor. But the edit is being like a huge clown, and like, I don't know, like, I think it's tough. And I think whether he was an outsider or not, it certainly seems that way from what the edit's showing us on Edge,
I met Adam last year at Hearts of Reality. He's a super, super nice guy.
Yeah.
Real genuine. And here's the thing with the edit, whether you like your edit or you don't like your edit, you signed up for it, man.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Control it, right?
And you can only edit so much to how you behaved or reacted. I mean, it's what you did, like whether or not, I mean, I could see the edit of, I think they were showing Nick at one point, like leaning in on conversations or something,
like
which is funny. I don't think that was as bad as it was, but hey man, I did all that. So it's all my edit what you want. That's, if you did that, you did that, and I mean, and that's how it was. You can't complain about it. You really can't. You were lucky enough to be chosen to be on a show that you love. And it's not like you had like a freaking double that made it up. You did those things and said whatever you said. And
for sure.
You know what I mean? It is what it is. So you really can't whine about it. And when you do, it's like you either didn't get enough airtime or you didn't get enough interviews or nobody's ever freaking happy, man.
No.
You know what I mean? Just shut up and be glad that you got what you got and walk away.
Let's be real. I love Adam Klein. I am sure he's a great person and a great survivor. Yeah. But if if Cochran would have said he wanted to go back and play on Survivor, I don't know that Adam is on the beach. So I think the fact that we got so much Adam Klein this season is very fortunate for him, because then we got to see him play again. And despite his edit and stuff,
I don't think Adam's sad or upset or anything. Yeah. He's so psyched that he was asked to be on and have an dude, they probably got like a decent amount of cash to do it. Give me a break.
Yeah.
No matter what. Like, well, you got nothing to bitch about, period. Like,
also he has a legendary moment of trying to play an idol attached to a podium.
I was really hoping it was an idol, man.
I was praying.
Like, that would be. I was like, wow, that's really smart that he thought of that.
So, Reem, I have a couple of Edge of Extinction questions from the chat, and then I want to transition over to the game and stuff that happened in the episode last night. So,
whatever you want.
Let me fire away. So, I have a question from Stu here, who said, "What was your daily schedule like on Extinction?"
Well, it was like the longest days of your life, man, because you never know what time it is, right? And come to find out, sundown was pretty freaking early. So you would wake up, and there'd be a camera in your face, basically. So you act like you were back to sleep and shove your buff up over your head, like, oh my God, leave me alone. And then you kind of see who is, what are people doing? Because a lot of people would go off and like meditate or find themselves or whatever, or practice whatever advantage nobody knew they had. And and you basically just sat there waiting for somebody else to say they want to go get the rice. Because you don't want to go freaking get it, dude. You had to go all the way up that, and it was a total haze, and you couldn't go up there. And this will come into that little excursion they went on the other day, because when it's high tide, you really can't hit the rocks to go up the mountain to get the rice. So you kind of have to time it properly, honestly. And a lot of time, if somebody woke up super early, they would go get it, or we would go get it as a group to see, to go on a field trip, or it just depends on when the tide was coming to. So your day, basically you woke up, you gathered wood, you kept the fire going, someone would go get the rice, or you would all get the rice, or if someone went to go get the rice, the other people would like gather stuff around camp. You would eat breakfast, and then you're looking for food all day, man, or you're, you know what I mean? Or you're practicing fire secretly, or you're I mean, a lot of times you're just looking for food, you know? You can only talk about so much crap. You're lucky if you get to play chess and play how many games there was this dumb game that Chris played that I hated it. I didn't understand it. And it was like, who can go in the stupid door? And and you'd be like, can this go in the door? And it's like, nope. And come to find out, it was like a 4-letter word could go in the. Do you know this stupid game?
Yes. This is this is a summer camp game. This is
it's like the worst game ever. Yeah. Like, I just wanted to play. Let's go round robin from A to Z and pick like a subject, and you have to say something. But no, they like to pick these games that were whatever. And then at night, if we were lucky, we got to go to the tribal. If not, I mean, what are you going to do? You go to bed. You talk about what you think's going on to the game. Who do you think might show up? Like, how could you have – basically, people show up and beat themselves up and go through the cycle of mourning of, why did this happen to me? And you just go through, I'm mad. I'm sad. I understand. Like, it's – so, and then that's why when people would show up, I'd be like, oh, woe is me, Okay, you're mad. So what, dude? How do you think everybody else felt that you voted out? That's why, I didn't really have mercy when people would show up. I'm like, go through your little cycle of emotions and deal with it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I think that's why a lot of people connected with you, Reem, though, because that's what a lot of people think when they're at home, and they are even though they've never been out on the island to prove it themselves, when people show up and stuff like that, like, you were able to narrate for the viewers a little bit. And I think that's why a lot of people connected with you, because it was like people were complaining about stuff, and it was like, well, you signed up for this, and you should know that these are the things that you're going to get when you come on Survivor.
I could leave.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
or you got blindsided. Guess what? You screwed somebody else 3 days ago, dude. What do you expect? Like, why are you better than somebody else? Like, you know?
So let me ask you this. So we were talking about Chris, and this, I guess, if this could be the last Chris question for the night, but if
I do like Chris. He's a hard worker, man. I got to throw it in there. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, we like Chris too, and he's a good guy. But if Chris was up against the people who played on this season, we had a question in the chat. How do you think he would have done in season 40, Winners of War?
I don't think he would have come in. Chris didn't come in strong on our season. I think he would have done okay, because he probably would have been part of that whole, how Wendell and Yule were acting like the outsider clan. I think he would have done. He's a very likable guy. As long as he wasn't trying to be a control freak about certain things. Chris, I'm pretty sure Chris was asked to come back.
Oh, okay.
I read that somewhere, and I may have heard that somewhere. But he had just gotten married. He had just done it. I don't know. I don't want to speak for him by any means, but
Well, that's interesting because I do feel like I was listening to Rob Sesternino talk about this particular thing, which is that there
Yeah.
was one thing that I think was missing from this cast of winners, which is that in all the previous All-Star seasons, we've had somebody that people don't really know, and it creates this element of like, what do we do with this person? Whether it was Rupert on All Stars or Russell in Heroes
came
Villains,
back,
it was like it was kind of cool because they don't really know this guy and how is he going to do, and are they going to, you have Rupert go really far, you have Russell almost win the game in Heroes Villains, and that makes me interested.
They didn't really know Nick.
Yeah, to be fair, if you asked Rob who Nick was the first day of the season, I probably Rob couldn't tell you who Nick was, probably.
Yeah, so I guess Nick would have been that. I mean, if they would have brought back Tommy, it would have been someone they really didn't know, like someone they didn't even get to see, except for Rob and Sandra would have known him. But I do feel like that element was missing a little bit from this cast, potentially.
I mean, if he was asked to come back, which I don't, like I said, I don't want to say anything I shouldn't say or don't really know. That I would hope that he doesn't regret not doing it, because you can't get it back. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean,
especially
kind
now,
of a legendary thing to be asked to do and turned down, I feel like.
For sure. I do hope we'll see him again. I hope we'll see you again. And but let's transition over to the episode. So
all right, we'll do whatever you want.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the first vote out. So we lose Jeremy in this 3-2. And I guess I really want to, go around the table and kind of ask everybody a little bit about, we'll start with Jeremy. I know Nick was a big focus, but we'll talk about Jeremy first in his game. So for me, at least, I felt like Jeremy was very similar to Kim. He never really got his footing in this season. It was always, the first vote out, he loses Natalie. And then he builds this relationship with Michelle, and he has an opportunity to work with the old schoolers like Rob and Parvati and Ethan. And he makes that, what I think was a mistake, and votes out Ethan and goes with wild cards like Adam and Ben, and doesn't necessarily connect with these people. These are people who he doesn't necessarily get along with later in the game. And the whole game, he's scrambling for allies. Very interesting. He voted correctly pretty much every single vote all the way through the merge. He has an opportunity to work with Wendell, but he still votes him out. And then there was he never really could get the momentum. So I guess I'll go around.
He didn't want to vote Wendell out, if you remember.
Yeah.
He wasn't happy about that vote.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is that,
yeah,
he wanted to work with these people, but he never really had the numbers to take control. And I remember there was a confessional earlier in the season where he kept saying, like, I just want to have control, and he just couldn't get it. So I guess I'll start with Reem, and then I'll bring the guys in. Reem, how did you feel about Jeremy this season?
I like Jeremy. I enjoy his personality. I like Jeremy. But, it's people saw Jeremy as a threat because of who he didn't you, and you hear it all the time. He has too many friends on the jury. There's too many. We got to get rid of him. But Jeremy was a huge shield. He really was. And you say Jeremy this year. Tony saved Jeremy's ass a couple times, man. He really did.
Yeah, Denise saved him with that idol.
Denise saved him.
Yeah. Can't think of other instances, but he definitely got saved quite a few times.
They're good. 2 episodes ago. So I like Jeremy, but he was just really making it by the skin of his teeth for you. I'm sorry? Am I you're breaking up or something?
No, we got you there. So no, I agree with you. He was really hanging on for a long time, and it was unfortunate because you good, Reem?
Okay. Yeah, I can't see this. You want the okay, what is this? All right, sure, allow, whatever. I don't even know.
Reem, we still got you if you can hear us.
I mean, I like Jeremy. That's all good. We're good. I feel like Jeremy was getting lucky. Like he should have been voted out almost every single time. And I feel like you had said, Denise saved him. Tony saved him. You know what I mean? I think
it's something to
go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's something, sorry for cutting you off, but I do think it's something to say about his social relationships, because there was a lot of instances where people were willing to stick out for him. Just like Michelle, she was willing to give him the 50-50 idol immunity. Denise, who saved him quite a few weeks
For no
ago.
reason. He was so surprised. He was like,
Yeah,
what, really?
so I do think socially Jeremy played a great game, and I think in general he's really well liked by the cast.
Yeah, I mean, don't you like him? You see
Yeah,
him?
I think we all do, but I
likable.
do, John, you bring up a good point because you say that very early on in the season he felt like he didn't just have that opportunity to get the numbers to vote out a big player. But, in last night's episode, I feel like he had the opportunity to rally if he was able to convince them. Denise, Michelle, and Nick, them four, this would have been a perfect opportunity. It's 4 versus 3. There's Ben, Sarah, and Tony on the other side. I feel like this could have been their moment to blindside Tony.
I don't think Jeremy trusted Nick, though, dude.
No, he didn't. You could tell.
He didn't trust Nick.
Yeah.
But forget about not trusting Nick. The priority also is getting out the big targets. And you can put your differences aside for one vote if you don't entirely trust Nick. I feel like it could have been a moment for him to gain that trust with Nick, convince him. Nick's a smart guy. Nick wanted to get Tony out quite a few times, even though he ended up voting with Tony for most of the game. But I feel like it could have been an opportunity, a missed opportunity to get Tony out.
Well, I think the agency in that particular vote wasn't necessarily on Jeremy. I think Jeremy would have worked with Nick if he could have. I think that it was Nick's doing. When you have a 3-2-2, and this was something that I think it was Tony or Sarah said. Basically, if Nick flips on them, like they can get Ben out right here. So it was really on Nick. So I guess before we transition over to Nick, who is really like the major storyline of last night, is how he got out of the game. Ethan, do you have any comments on Jeremy?
Yeah, what I found interesting was that of all the people who Tony probably should have seen as a threat going to the end, I think Jeremy was the only person, as far as my view of how the game has been played, that if they went up against Tony, it could be a competition, I guess, in the final because of how Jeremy was a survivor. Jeremy managed to get out of things, and yeah, it came from the beneficiaries from other players, but a lot of that, like Reem said, it comes about gameplay, right? It's how you play with people, and if you're a likable player, and the way he's been playing, he was going to get advantages, and he was going to get farther than he probably should have. I think it's interesting with Jeremy. I think of all people, if he can make it back into the game, because he was out. So not only was he out, he was in the game more recently, but he also had he had much more agency than, let's say, Nick, who got voted out next. He could go in, and by then, if he comes back in the game when things are a little bit more dire and dicey and people are close to the end, I could see him pulling a big move. I could see him coming in and say, look, I survived. I made it back. Now you guys can work with me more. So I think it's interesting. I think he's a very interesting player to watch. And I think it'll really depend on what happens with the first scene of next episode, of who makes it back in the game.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like in this particular season, you want to sit next to somebody who is amazing and who you can be. Personally, would rather sit next to somebody who I would be wondering if I would beat them or not, because we both were great and I need to prove myself as to why I'm proud to be sitting here next to these people. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, that's a great point. And I think yeah.
And the whole shield thing and the whole hyena thing, you know what I mean? But and you got it, and that's risky, because you got to have the balls to want to be able to sit with somebody that good if you're going to get rid of the other people that you're calling hyenas or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I think that's why Tony had such admiration for Jeremy, because he must have thought that this is a guy who deserves to go to the end, but the question is, I guess, we're going a little off topic, we can go back to it later on, but I guess, does Tony see that in Sarah? Is that one of the reasons him and Sarah are so tight? A, because they're friends, you know, they have this cops or us, and would be, you know, she is playing a strong, albeit different. I want to see people's opinions whether you think Sarah's playing a strong game, because I think there's an argument to make that her being above it all, but playing a different, not as flashy of a game as Tony, and not as out there game as Jeremy, who's surviving and dodging with literal bullets. I think she played an interesting game too, and I think, you know, as much as Tony probably thinks Sarah right now left in the game is the person who gave me the biggest run for my money, I think maybe he sees her as someone who I respect, and I'd want her in the game with me in the final because I respect her game. And I think someone like Ben or Denise or maybe Michelle would not have that same profile based on just the game they've played so far.
Well, Ethan, let me ask you this. You know, I remember one of the seasons, Heroes versus Villains, Russell Hantz made it to Final 3. And I remember one of the jury members, when they spoke up on the podium, was basically saying there's two ways of playing Survivor. There's A, playing to make it to the Final 3, and then the second way to play is to make it to the Final 3 and position yourself to win. So do you think Sarah, by aligning herself with Ben and Tony, do you think it's a smart move to align yourself with Tony at this point of the game? I know it's hard because they don't have the perception we do by us viewers watching in on the game. But, you know, do you think her aligning herself with Tony till the very, very end is a $2 million mistake for her?
Well, I mean, look, you know, you could say, I think it's different than when you compare it to like what Wu did, for example, when he decided to bring Tony and basically sealed his fate by bringing someone who very clearly would have beaten him. I think Sarah plays a different game. I think her game is so different from Tony's. Tony is everywhere, and even when he isn't spy shacking and running through the jungle, you know,
spy shack.
It's amazing, you know. But the episode he had two episodes ago, which was like could be the greatest single episode gameplay by one player, like maybe ever. I wasn't in for that conversation, so for this chat, but I think Sarah plays such a different game, and you saw the way she won Game Changers, and the way that, you know, she endeared herself, you know, in Kagayan still as a player. I think her view, and I think you have to think this if you're a winner, is if I can make the final, I can win. And Sarah's narrative might be, look, you know, I ran this game with Sophie, you know, and I was such a good player that when people started seeing Sophie as a threat and took her out when she was getting too big, they didn't see me as a threat. Maybe it's just because Tony and her are boys, but the truth is like she played a game where she hasn't been touched, you know, and she hasn't been touched. And so, and you made that argument. I think if they go with Ben gets 0 votes. That's my view, but you know, but I think
Reem, I did see you nod your head a little bit there when I asked the question. So I'm actually curious to see what you think of Sarah wanting to work with Tony till the very end.
Well, Sarah's smart, man. Like, try to remember that she was like, I need to make Ben think it's his idea to blindside Nick. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And she beautifully did it.
It's a Jedi mind trick.
I love a Jedi mind trick. Yeah, it was. And, you know, the master Jedi, though, is Rob. He Jedi mind tricks people all the time.
Exactly.
But remember when with Ben in the beginning? Yeah. That was fantastic.
Tell me you said my name. He's like, oh.
Right. But she's, just because, like you said, she's not flashy, she's good, dude. Yeah, she's, you know, the whole with Sophie, the fact that her name hasn't really come up much. I think it came up, we need to separate Sarah and Tony. Like, I think we maybe heard that once or twice, but she's still there. She doesn't have an idol. She's good.
Yeah.
Well, Reem, I don't think she's going to the end with Tony if she doesn't think she has a chance in the end. So, I mean, like, as much as they're friends outside the game and partners throughout the, you know, multiple seasons now, she must think that she could beat Tony if she was going to go to the end there. And I think if she didn't think she could beat Tony, she wouldn't do it, but also she would find another path. And right now it seems like she wants to get there with Tony. Do you agree that she must feel like she has a shot there?
Oh Oh, yeah. I mean, look, these people all have a shot. It kind of boils down to how you articulate what you have done in Final Tribal. Because people go into Tribal kind of with an open mind. I will say I learned a lot at my Final Tribal, but at the same time, you hear a lot of things on the edge of extinction about what was going on. You really, really do. Like everybody says this, like, because they show up. I mean, they got nothing else to do. Tell me everything. What happened? What's going on? And they exchange stories, and everything comes out. So, and that helps when it comes down to the question and answer, because they've changed the format. Which format do you like better, by the way, in Final Tribal?
I personally have always preferred the individual questions.
I like it too, man. Like I like that.
Yeah, I find it gets very chaotic, and it's actually easier on the viewer to follow. The difference is what's funny is that, Reem, I'm not sure if you're a Big Brother fan or not, but
I've seen it a little bit. I saw Celebrity Big Brother sometimes.
Well, in Big Brother, they still do the individual questions, but they don't give them enough time to actually have a little bit of back and forth. But I love that they're able to have a conversation, but I find when anyone can jump in, you have a lot of people on the jury who are basically, they have their own motives. They want to prove that, they had some type of agency in the game at some point, that maybe that they didn't. And then it becomes like, are you really there to vote for the best player, or are you going to just pipe up in every single conversation to prove that you had some say in how these three people got to the end?
And track on the next
season. Only some people end up doing all the talking, and you're just like, dude, stop taking, everybody has an opportunity. I feel like we could have missed the snake and the rat. That is one of the best of all time.
The best.
You know what I mean? You just, it's funny to hear what each person feels and wants to say to the final two or now final three. You know what I mean? Like, I prefer the old school format.
Yeah. How do you feel about, in general, the fire making challenge to earn your spot to the final three? Do you like this format to make your way
out, man? It's tough, dude. It's tough because making fire is, you win some and you lose some. You know what I mean? You could each be doing the same damn thing, and somebody's just did a little better than the other person. You know what I mean? I'm sorry. I've seen it. I've seen it where I've had a great fire, and I've seen it where I did the same shit and it hardly went down. So, I mean, it's maybe I'm just not a consistent fire maker. But And it's funny you bring that up, because they were bringing that up about Ben. Like, you do not want to go down to fire making with him.
I thought Nick brought up a good point there.
Well, Nick's gone, so it's so who's it going to be now? Is it really going to be Ben, Tony, and Sarah in that final three? Do you think that?
I don't think so. I actually think we might be heading, because Reem, I love where you were going with saying that people want to sit next to threats because it proves that they can win. And I'm wondering if we're heading to a place where we might actually have a Tony, Sarah, and the person who comes back from Edge of Extinction. And that's the final three, because then you have these two people who played together who actually might split the votes. And then you have the Edge of Extinction person who can come in there and take the rest of the votes potentially, because Tony and Sarah worked together the whole time, but you have this own argument.
So if they do the same challenge that we did, because they did do the same challenge for the first one in, that doesn't all have to do with athleticism, dude, because the last part of that challenge is that stupid board that you have to balance to get the ball through the maze and then in the hole. Yeah. And, I mean, who's good at that type of shit? Rob.
Yeah, I think Boston Rob. I certainly think Tyson.
Tyson, he did, because he did good on the whole S thing. That's hard, because if it's the same challenge, they go, there's some, there's just one of the last things you do. Oh my God, I kick myself with this. It's the going in and out of that stupid fence. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, they have.
here's the funny thing. When
Yeah.
you are doing challenges, before the challenge starts, you walk through, this isn't top secret information. I mean, you walk through the challenge with Jeff, and he's like, do you have any questions? Because it's your one time to ask a question about, well, wait, what about this? What about this? And you know how sometimes you don't ask a question because you don't want to be the dumbass. Nobody else is asking a question. I don't you know what I'm talking about?
Well, yeah, I know I do, because on the TV show, this is something that when I was younger and I used to watch a show, and Jeff would be like, "Any questions?" And then it would just cut to, "Okay, we're good." And I'm sure somebody asked a question at some point.
Nobody wants to ask a question. So
Yeah.
when we were walking back to get in our positions, I was looking at the last pole when you go in and out and weave your body in through the stupid fencing, and it ends with these ropes, and you had to get out of the ropes. I said to myself, how the hell are you going to get out of the ropes? But did I ask how? I don't understand. Everybody else apparently understood. And I was like, there is no way I'm going to get my body through these freak. Wasn't thinking that you had to mess with the slack to then make your body, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right.
The moral to this story is ask questions. Ask questions.
Yeah, but
that can slow you down big time.
Yeah, I do feel that it's so appropriate if they would have done an endurance challenge to win yourself back into the game, because it really shows at that point, okay, who really wants to make their way back? Who really wants to fight their way back in? And I just feel like doing these maze challenges and going through obstacle courses, I feel like it's a little bit catered towards certain players who excel in those environments.
Well, they try to make it as fair as humanly possible for every single athletic level, right? But I was watching. Have you watched season 1 recently?
Borneo.
Not recently.
Recently,
Watched it recently.
Yeah, I do.
I'm watching Australian Survivor right now, actually.
Yeah,
That's
I do
great.
have the original Survivor
Of course you do. Okay, so the final challenge. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yes, so the one where
they're holding themselves on the pole.
the one where Hats
Yeah,
Let's
Hold the
Go.
pole.
Yeah.
Okay. Why didn't I get that challenge, dude? Like, that's why I was like, I remember being in a confessional, and they're like, do you think you'll win? And I'm like, no. But I don't know what the challenge is. If it's sitting on your ass, as long as humanly possible, I can win that. If it's holding on to a freaking pole for 20 hours, I could probably do that.
Yeah, I think we have that one right up here.
Yeah, right. Yeah, poor Rudy, dude. He let go for a second. She's like, he let go. I just saw it the other day. But you would prefer a challenge like that for the end instead of this like 5 freaking different
Lanes
obstacle course and with this that sucks, man. But it's supposed to be fair for everyone. That's why they try to make it as fair as possible. I think it's pretty fair if you all hold on to a pole. That's not difficult. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I do think it's fair. I think a lot of the problems with endurance challenges in general is there is like a little bit of sometimes there's challenges that are great for men and sometimes there's challenges that are great for women. And you got to be careful to have that gender balance in a challenge. And I guess they try and pick the thing that's most fair. But I think most importantly is that they just don't want to spend that much time on the challenge. They want to bring this person back and they have like a long finale. And
yeah, because that could last forever. I got you.
it could totally last forever. I mean, you could end up having, I mean, if it's hold on to a pole, I mean, like Eric was talking about Australian Survivor, they've actually done that challenge for a couple seasons in Australian Survivor now. And that's gone on like a long time. And they've brought out people's families for it. And I just don't know that
the final 3. It's intense. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know that American Survivor is willing to invest in something like that, whereas this is like, you know, we're going to do the challenge, we're going to get it over with, and then we're going to send our jurors off to Ponderosa.
Ponderosa.
Yeah, so Reem, let me talk about a couple people that we didn't get to talk about yet.
Okay.
You still there? So one of the people I wanted to ask you about was Denise, because I know that I believe I heard on your podcast with Rob that you guys are in a similar age group. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I want to know like what you think we've seen some interesting confessionals from Denise the last couple of episodes where it seems like she's struggling a little bit with the game, and she put her hand up, you know, when Jeremy was trying to talk to her during one of the tribals where they were whispering, and now she's writing, you know, she's painting things, you know, quotes to herself. Do you have any, like,
she's tattooing herself now?
Yeah, what do you think about Denise
aggro.
and how she's doing for someone who is in a little bit of the same demographic as Denise?
Because we're the same age. Listen, she said, what did she say? Endure and let go. Were those the two words?
Yeah,
Sure,
something
yeah.
like that.
Listen, man, you have got to, like, it is a mind screw when you're in this. It just is. Like, it's so easy to watch, sit on your couch and judge. It really, really is. But you can't trust, like, I didn't have trust issues when I came home, but I had heard from other cast members that they did. And you're constantly being lied to. You're wondering if you're going to get voted off. Meanwhile, you're missing your family. You're wondering if it was worth it to leave. You know, there's so much going on. You're stressed out. You're tired. You're hungry. Like, listen, man, no matter what happens with Denise, she voted out Sandra, dude.
Yeah.
That's like
She is
amazing.
She's the queen killer.
Amazing, right? And
She did have that shining moment during the season.
she
But
did.
I do think, however, last night she had a few good moments, but I do think overall, like, when I say good moments, she was talking about blindsiding Tony at the well, though
Yeah.
Tony was perched 6 feet above the earth.
I love that.
About it. But, you know, I find overall that Denise didn't really quite play a cohesive game. You know, you see her at the very beginning being tight with Jeremy and playing the idol with him. And then as you move forward later on in the season, she became tight with Kim, Nick, and Michelle and had a little bit of an alliance there. And now it seems like she's already moved on to another alliance. So I feel like she's been hip-hopping from
You have to, though.
from the
You
power.
Yeah,
You have to. I mean, give her credit for being able to do that. Do you know what I mean?
All I'm saying is that it hasn't been cohesive with how she's been wanting to play the game.
yeah, but
Man, you go with what you got. I mean, you got to give it to her. She's still in the game. So say whatever you want. She hasn't been voted out yet. She hasn't.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah,
whole
I
thing
think-
of her putting – I'm sorry, honey. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. No, for sure. Putting
The
the
whole
hand
thing
up.
with her hand going, I'm done. She's mentally spent and she just wants to vote and move on. I'm done. Because there is tribal can go on as
For
long as you
hours.
want it to go on. Like, it could be the never ending freaking tribal. And it just gets to the point, dude, where how many times, let's just do this. I'm done. Let's go. Let's do it. You know what I mean? And you know it's really unfortunate is the cyberbullying that goes on, because here you have these people, and I'm just going to change the subject for a second. Sorry, I know you're on it, but I've got to say that, like, 20 people, yes, they're getting paid. Yes, there's a huge pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but they're still people, and you can't judge them, and you can't call them. There's so many nasty names that were being called to these people. You don't even know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
72 hours and 40-something minutes. Dude, shut up. You know, don't call people these terrible names or say that they are against certain groups of people because at a tribal council, they were just mentally spent and wanted to just vote and go to bed. Do you know what I mean? Because it's a lot.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times when you are done with tribal and you go back, it's like, hey, man, can we just go to sleep? Like the whole night, I'll use the example of War Dog getting voted off and coming back to the Edge. I wanted to, I waited for him to come. And Eric, you know, bed, like, I'm like, sure, out of respect for you, yes, I will be quiet. But War Dog started it, so I had to finish it, and I told him to shut his hole until the next day, and it got ugly. but I didn't want. I mean, people just they're done. There's just it's so exhausting. You're on the edge of extinction, or you're a tribal. I mean, no matter what, it's a long process of boat rides and waiting around, and then chaos, and then more boat rides and more wait. You know what I mean? It's a lot,
Absolutely.
dude.
Question for
So,
you, Reem. How
are we
long are
on
those?
the-
How long are those boat rides when you go from edge to tribal or from camp to tribal? I'm just curious.
So I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but if tribal's where it was, where I was, it's not bad. However, the boat ride from where the Manu original tribe was, which is where they all are right now, it's longer. So, and those boat rides are not a good time, man. It's wet. It's wet. You can't hide the wet. And you're under that. You're not like sitting out on a boat with the wind blowing. It's cold. I don't know why people dress in like they're not cold, because it's freezing at night. It really is. It's cold. You're wet. You've been waiting around. It's exhausting, dude. You know what I mean? So I'm sorry. I go Denise, because honestly,
Well,
you can't really. It's hard to judge these people until you're
For
put
sure.
into that situation.
Reem,
and
you brought
see
up an
how
interesting point.
emotionally-
Sorry, I was going to say, Reem, because I know you talked about when War Dog got to the edge of extinction, and that's a really interesting point, because I was interested in hearing how you said after the season, you know what, like I had something to say, I wanted to get it out, and then we could move on, and then we were done with it, and that was it. And I'm wondering if you had something similar where you had this situation between Ben and Jeremy in the game, two people who just didn't get along and obviously had this built up tension, and maybe if they just sat down and just, you know, instead of just pretending to lie to each other, but just like really, you know, like had it out with each other the way that you had it out with War Dog, if maybe at that point they could have moved on and worked together and basically used Reem's PR firm to do that.
Here's the thing: they're still in the game, so they're never going to trust each other. He's never going to trust him. So maybe when they hit Ponderosa, they were able to iron it out. But there's always going to be a level of distrust and a what are you whispering about probably in the game. Do you see what I mean? So maybe I would hope that they left Fiji being cool, but in the game, it's a mind f. Like it's almost when people would come to the edge, they were kind of like, oh my god, like my brain just wants to explode from all the strategizing and the, you know, the what are you whispering about? Where is he? Where is Tony? I mean, all of that. Like, imagine, put yourself in that position, and not, especially Tony. Where is Tony? Oh,
Gotta keep one eye open at night.
Like, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, I'm not going to say that Denise hasn't played a good game, because she has. I mean,
no,
she scrapped it up too.
Still here.
Yeah. I mean, all of them have.
Yeah,
I mean, and no disrespect to Michelle. We haven't really seen her do anything, but hey, she won that immunity in the right moment. She offered up that she got so lucky with that heads or tails, right? Wow.
Well, it's actually an interesting point, because we were discussing this earlier, John and I. If she had given the half idol to Jeremy last tribal council, well, first of all, it would have been a 50-50 if Jeremy would have been saved. But if he would have been safe, it would have been a tie between Michelle and Ben, and it would have gone to a revote where it would have been likely been Michelle who went home. So I think ultimately she did play it right.
Yeah, she did play
for herself.
it right. And that's huge. You know what I mean? You got to give some. How many people got voted out with an idol?
Well, Sophie did.
Yeah,
Sophie did.
Yeah, so that's a big one. I mean, one of the like last main big topics that I wanted to talk to you about tonight, Reem, and the panel is Nick. And that was one person that we kept saying was really, that was a lot of the focus of the episode was on Nick's decision not to flip on Tony and Sarah, only to be voted out the next time. And I guess like one of the big things that I thought was interesting was he got this disadvantage from the edge of extinction, which is to, you know, have somebody who's playing the immunity challenge, and they're going to be disadvantaged moving forward. And he decides to play it on Ben. Now, I know it's anonymous, and I know that he wants to get Ben out the next round, but to me, wasn't the answer to play this on Michelle? Because if he plays it on Michelle, then Michelle doesn't win immunity, and Michelle probably goes home. Nick is still in the game. But instead, he chooses to play it on Ben, hoping to make a big move and somehow get out numbers. And I feel like he made a mistake there, and I'm curious what your thought about that was.
I don't see why he would have played it on Michelle because they were voting together. I don't, you know what I mean?
Well, but so they're down in the numbers at that point. So it is a 4-2, and he's just basically saying, now I'm going to put myself at the bottom of the pecking order.
But if anything, I think goes back to, the winners thinking they must think they have a shot to win this game still. They're still in it. I think Nick thought that if he played it on Ben and it blocked, and then Michelle got it, he said, okay, well, I'm not burning any bridges with Tony, who I want to work with, basically, and I want to, eventually flip this onto Ben. I don't like Ben. It seems like no one likes Ben. Everyone's starting fights with Ben.
Well, no one wants to be stuck with Ben in a final 3 and losing that fire challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
He couldn't really do the fire. Yeah,
exactly. So I think for him, he said, well, this was Nick's master plan was, I'm gonna create this new alliance. I'm gonna bring Michelle in. I'm gonna take out Ben. I'm gonna flip the game, which would have been great if he didn't vote out Jeremy the round before. It would have been great if he had Jeremy to work with.
But keep in mind that Michelle did give Nick 2 of the fire tokens. For that disadvantage.
Yeah, he's not gonna play it on Michelle.
Something. Yeah. How funny was it when Nick was like, my pockets are a little light. I thought that.
Just like he's walking on eggshells talking to Tony because he's so intimidating.
Yeah.
How do I approach Tony?
Because they're all starstruck too. Think about it, kind of. I mean, they've been on a few times. It was just like Ben, like spilling everything to Boston Rob. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think
you saw that with Ben episode 1 when
it was so funny.
When they're walking with Boston Rob on the beach, and he was like stuttering his words.
Yeah, who said my name?
So Reem, so just let me just cover that question about Nick. So what did you think about Nick's move in the end, and do you think there was anything that he could have done to stay in the game?
I mean, no, I don't, because they already had it nailed down. I mean, they were getting rid of the hyenas. Remember? I mean, that was I did. If it wasn't Michelle, it was Nick.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I don't think there was no saving grace. But I will say it was kind of funny when you have the lawyer and the cop, and the cop's confronting the lawyer with, "Did you know about this?" And he's like, I don't know. You remember that when they were. When he was asking him if he knew about voting him out. And I'm like, wow, you're a horrible liar. This guy sees liars all the time. He's a cop. You see liars all the time. You're a lawyer. Like, come on.
And then you got Jeremy, who's a firefighter.
As the resident lawyer in this chat, I will say, we deal with liars a lot, but we're not supposed to be knowing they're lying, though. Cops are looking for the liars. We are trying to pretend that the lying isn't happening.
Well, he didn't do a good job lying.
Exactly. He kind of got broken down, which was incredibly funny.
Yeah, and I will say that I do think that the one mistake, if we're going to track Nick's game throughout the entire season, I do think that voting out Yule when he did, who was his ally from the beginning, and he was in that alliance originally with Yule and Wendell and Sophie, I think was a big mistake for him, where he lost control and he decided to go ahead with Wendell and Michelle going into the merge, and he really never got his footing. And basically Sophie got closer to Sarah and then Tony, and they got more control over the merge. So I think that was like really the pivot point for him throughout his game.
Yeah, I was surprised that he did that, but Yule's a smart dude, and he was already talking about 3 steps ahead, talking fire tokens. I mean, that's the minute somebody talks about all their strategy. Remember Michaela making the diagram on the beach about, and then she was out the next vote. Do you remember that? They were like,
Yeah.
"Whoa, she's smart." We gotta get rid of her.
Yeah, I do remember
Play
that.
low key, you know. That's the thing. You know,
Yeah.
Tony for his all his craziness. He's played a very patient game this season, and he's been.
That's
he's
because
been,
Baby Cakes told him to.
Baby Case told me I can't be too crazy this time.
So Reem, I guess before we finish up for the evening, I do want to go around and I want to ask everybody. This is our last show before the finale, so I want to ask winner pick, and then who are we hoping? I have someone in the chat also saying, who do you hope comes back from Edge? So, give me your two people.
All right, you go first. I'll go last.
Okay, so let's go around the panel. So you, Eric, why don't we start with you? So winner and who comes back from Edge.
There's quite a few people I'd like to see come back from Edge, but I'm curious to see how Parvati is gonna play her way back into the game and how she's going to integrate with the finals, with the final six. That's someone I'm very curious about. And then in terms of winning, I said this in previous live streams, but Tony is just one of my favorite players of all time. I find he's so captivating with his confessionals, and he really draws people in, and he's just such a great source of entertainment. And when we talk about, like, John, you brought this up to Reem, is that, like, you want to draw audience members in your confessionals, and that's something that Reem, that you did your season. Like, people can relate to you, and I just feel like Tony was able to do just that. Was, bring people right in the moment. Like when he was reading that the extortion advantage, he was
Oh my God, extortion! This is illegal. Oh my God!
He was reading it, and in his confessional, he was talking as if he was reading it for the very first time, and he really brought us line by line how he felt in the moment. So I really hope Tony, I think he really could represent season 40 very well, and I think people can see that.
Okay, Ethan.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Who would you not want to see win? Is there someone you don't want to see win?
I'll answer that.
It's a great question, because I do think with this final, I'm sorry, how many are we at now? We're at 6.
Final 5 plus the Edge of Extinction.
Sorry, final 5, yeah. So I do think the final 5 right now, everyone has a story. I do think that's the case. If Nick was still in there, I wouldn't necessarily agree. But if I had to choose one out of the 5, I would say Sarah. I'm gonna get a lot of heat for it, but I just feel like she was very dismissive to Michelle when I call this the pottery painting station. Last night, they're both painting, and Michelle was bringing up some very valid points, and I just feel like Sarah was just kept both of her ears completely shut. Words were coming in from one ear, going out the other, and then she went and made some hasty comments to her alliance members right after that. So I just feel like she's a little bit closed-minded, and she's tunnel vision with Tony till the very end.
It's almost condescending for someone to tell you all that shit as if you don't know. Do you know what I mean? You don't think Sarah already knew all that shit? I don't need you telling me what is pretty obvious. I think I know what I'm doing. So if you think you're bringing up points that I never thought about, you know what I mean? I know what I'm doing. These are my people. Nice try. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm not like some naive little kid that just showed up and you're trying to tell me, you know what I mean? If anything, I could understand where dude, I'm still on this Zoom. Yeah, thanks. Give me a minute.
Is that Jeff?
That's Jeff Daly.
Hi, Jeff.
Jeff. So look, I agree with you. I can counter and give it a little bit of a battle back, but I'll leave it to you three because I know we're wrapping things up.
Yeah, so let's wrap.
Right, go ahead. Let me hear what you have to say.
So Ethan, let me ask you. So person you think who's going to win, person you think is going to come back from the Edge, and then according by Reem, her question is, who do you not want to win the game?
I mean, It's good. I like how you worded it. This is gonna be all over the Survivor internets tomorrow. Reem Daly,
I know, great.
Yeah.
starting fights. I think Better's guess is probably Tony at this point, just because he's so captivating and gotten all the time. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Sarah came in, swooped in last minute, if somehow she could maybe knock Tony out and put him in a fight-making challenge or something like that. I would, it's boring, but I think Jeremy being back in the game would create more drama and more, authentic narrative than if you brought I don't know, not crapping on her or anything, but if Danny Boatwright came back in, let's say, it's kind of hard to. It'd be weird, right? It'd be kind of tough. It'd be tough for Danny. It wouldn't be fair to her for her to jump in, right? But and then in terms of people who don't want to win, I don't know. I just kind of found that Ben's vibe this season has been kind of a bummer. I think he's kind of just been a little antagonistic, a little aggro with certain people, and it's just I think for him his story is a little tougher because he really did, if like Sarah did with her these are not the droids you're looking for, you want to vote out Nick.
These are not the droids. You're
exactly. I'm trying to throw some New Hope references for you, Reem, but I think it'd be tough for him to make that case, especially if Sarah or Tony are there, just because so much what he did was based on them. And I do not think, looking back, that'd be a very weird season 40. I think if Michelle even made it, she would have this amazing narrative of beating the odds, being dismissed at every turn and surviving and fighting longer than all these people. Yeah, Denise too, the Queen Slayer, that alone could give her, rep cred. So yeah, I think Ben's probably the one who maybe has showed the least of wearing that mantle. But like Eric said, like Reem said, they're all winners at this point,
Yeah, they are. I mean, jokes.
So I guess before I'll go before we get to you, Reem, last. But or actually, well, first off, I have from Mikey, our producer in the back, basically said he wants Rob to come back and he thinks that Tony will win. So I don't disagree with him. I mean, I love Boston Rob. I would love to see him come back. I actually don't think he has a really good shot if he comes back in the game. So I almost don't really want to put myself through that if Rob comes back. But I would love to see Tyson. I think Tyson definitely has a shot if he came back in the game. I would love to see Parvati. I think that Parvati has a great shot, especially because she built that relationship with Michelle. And the fact that Michelle survived to the finale, I feel like justifies me saying that I think it's going to be Parvati who's going to come back in the game, but I'm not sure. As for the person who I hope wins the game, or I think will win the game, I really believe that we're getting the story of Tony, or at the worst, the story of Sarah. Not that it's a bad thing that if Sarah wins the game, but just because I just feel connected to Tony as far as him being able, we discussed this in the last few podcasts and about how Tony connects with the audience a little bit more than Sarah does. But if Tony or Sarah wins this season, I will understand how we got there. If Ben, Denise, or Michelle wins this season, I'm going to be a little bit more confused. And I think I want for this epic 40th season, I just want a winner that we can all understand how they won the game. And I believe that's probably Tony, if not Sarah. So Reem, tell me what you think.
I kind of want Jeremy to come back in, but I have a feeling that if it is the same challenge that we did, the same second challenge to get in, I could see it just because of how it went in the first merge challenge. I could see it being Rob and Tyson in that stupid maze. I could see them being really good at that. Rob's one of those people that's just freaking good at everything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I would like to see Jeremy come back in, and I'd love for it to come down to Jeremy, Sarah, and Tony. I would love to see that. Would that not be awesome?
Yeah.
I would love that. I really would.
Wonderful.
Who do I not think should win? They're all winners, but of the people currently in the game, not the Edge folks, I don't know, man. I know you guys are anti-Ben in it, but I think Ben, Ben has really been a number for Tony and vice versa. And when there were a lot of votes where I was like, I wonder if Ben's really going to go with Tony. And he did. So you got to give him some street cred on that alliance that's going on there. There is something there. And as far as, I don't know, I got to give him that. And no disrespect to Michelle, but the ones left on the island, I don't know. I don't even want to say it because I don't want to come back on me, and they're all going to be like, "You're a loser and got voted off first. You have no right saying anything."
No worries. Well, we got
a lot to hear what you guys had to say.
No, thank you. We got a lot of great stuff from you tonight, but I promised that I would ask you this question. So before we go, what's happening with your Best Buy stuff? So
dude, my husband's heard enough of this trash. Okay. This is what's up. This is so ridiculous. So this is kind of funny, right? And I hope none of them are watching. So I'm in sales, and this is kind of funny. We have access to databases where you can find out who the C-level people are in certain organizations. Mm-hmm. So as I'm sitting here going, who can I actually get to listen to this that will understand that this is a big customer service issue? So I looked it up in this particular database, and I CC'd every Tom, Dick, and Harry that I could that I thought would give a shit about this current issue.
Well, wait, so for people who don't know, it's that you gave your data, like all your photos, all your videos.
No. Okay, we're going to rewind for people that don't know.
Okay.
It was Christmas time.
Okay.
And I was buying my husband a new laptop, some other crap at Best Buy. And this lady says to me, "Hey, we're having a promotion. If you want to upgrade your computers or transfer all your data, blah, 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 $200. And I was like, sweet, I'm not that savvy and I need to I'd like to organize my life in 2020. Sure. Let me buy this overpriced hard drive, and that way I can transfer all my data onto it, right? And the funny thing is, I was on the phone with Wendy or Aubrey when I was like, I'm going to Best Buy and I'm doing this. I get to Best Buy, drop all my shit off. I'm like, here's the sale. I was all excited. And then I went back to pick it up. And then I dropped off more computers. Now, on these computers, my father's passed away. I've got some pictures of my dad. My daughters are musicians. My son plays soccer. I've got videos of them, from when they were little. My son's 17. My daughters are 15. And these are memories, dude. You know what I'm saying? Put it all on this drive, add more stuff, blah, blah, blah. It is now almost to the date, January 17th. And I have now dropped off 4 months. 3 Apple computers. And then I had some PCs that I just wanted to pull the hard drive out of and just transfer the data. I am legit on a work trip. I get a phone call from some kid and he's like, "Yo, we lost your data." And I'm like, "What? We lost your data." I'm like, "Bro, I can't deal with this right now. I'll call you when I get back." So I get back home, I was in Texas, and I get home and I'm like, "Are you serious right now?" And they're like, "Yeah, we effed up." And I'm like, "No shit, Sherlock. You really lost my data?" I'm like, "You're kidding, right? This is my father's passed away." I'm going through the whole night, and I go, "I need to speak with the manager." Nobody called me. Crickets. I'm like, "Are you kidding?" So I would continuously call and be like, "I need to talk to somebody. I need to talk. Where's my data? Where's my drive? Where's this? Where's that?" Dude, just debacle after debacle. At the end of the day, they were like, "Listen, guess what we're going to do? We're going to send it off for a level 2 fix. It's on us." I'm like, "No shit. You lost my stuff. Of course it's on you." You know what I mean? Then they're like, "We have a problem. We can't, we're having so much." At the end of the day, it's one guy who's supposed to be Mr. Customer Service. It's so ridiculously rude. And he's and offers me $500. Like, are you offering me $500 for lost photos and videos? Like, are you serious? I go, you might want to add a couple zeros to that and get back to me, dude. And he goes, well, it sounds to me like you're more interested in money. You haven't even looked at your stuff. I'm like, I don't even have my stuff to look at it, man. So I finally get it, and they're harassing me. Have you seen it? Have you seen it? I'm like, no, dude, you need a freaking, like, somebody with a doctorate degree in how to open up this hard drive to find the freaking data. So finally, I get somebody from the Geek Squad to map into my computer, and he had a hard time too, man. And then when we're looking at all the pictures, I'm like, what the hell is this? And it looks like, basically, it was all my daughter's pictures of their friends making stupid, goofy faces and all this other random dumb shit. And it was them sticking their phone into their computer. So it was basically the stuff off of their computer, which was just me being safe downloading all their stuff. I didn't really give a shit about their computer. It was the first computer that went in that was like the family MacBook Pro that had the important stuff, which is everything that got lost.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
So where's my data? Gone. Where's my check to say sorry about your luck? No clue. I said, you know what? There was one computer that you guys couldn't get into because I didn't have the password. I found the password. There's currently now anything matter because that's a computer. Thank God I didn't give them initially because they would have lost that shit too. To wrap it all up, I'm back to square one. I haven't heard back from anybody, but please stand by because this story is not done. It's only May, and this started in January. We have until December to make it a year of drama. So we'll see what happens. We'll try to get this concluded by the end.
Well, we wish you luck, and next time we hear you on our HAP or whether it's with us or whoever it is, we hope that by then you'll have all your stuff back. Because I know that if I ever lost my stuff, I would want to have a Reem Daly, to call for me. To speak to Best
Nobody
Buy
cares, but look how far we've gotten. Nowhere fast.
I think it's going to turn around. But anyways, Reem, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
And great season. I'm glad it's gotten us through quarantine. Thank you all for reaching out. Love the Canadian accent, by the way. Fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
You guys
don't notice
are a lot
it ourselves,
of fun.
but we
a lot of fun. Thanks for reaching out, man. Stay healthy.
Stay safe, Reem.
Is there anything else before you head out that you wanted to promote just before you go?
No, I got nothing to promote. Peace and harmony amongst us all, right?
Yes.
Peace. Thank you
Enjoy
so
the
much.
Finale.
All right,
Yeah, dude, I can't wait.
Reem.
All right, for everyone who's watching on the
guys.
live stream, we're going to end this live stream right now. So thank you so much for joining us, and
This concludes the live stream.
we will see you guys next week.
All right, y'all.
All right,
Thank you.
Reem, we're done, and thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was awesome.
My pleasure.
Absolute honor.
Later.
Okay, hope the family stays safe.
Yeah, man. You too. How do you end this, dude?